So when I saw the call for this presentation, invisible threats, I started to think, what does that mean to me? And what I came up with is misaligned mission hitches. So these are problems that are artifacts of programs that we've created to solve problems that are invisible because they're kind of hidden by the way that the programs come together. And they could be really problematic. All right, so just quickly, this is building off of community coastal resiliency work that we've been doing with help from the Water Center and from the Integrated Assessment Center and the Michigan Coastal Zone Management Program. We've been working with communities mostly along Lake Michigan, first to help them update their master plans. Some of the work that Maria and Jen showed were part of that earlier session. And the house she showed has become one of the poster child of improvident shoreline development, given Great Lakes dynamics. We've been working most recently with the city and the township of Grand Haven to go the next step. After they did their master plan, how might they take steps to actually implement some of the policies they said they want to follow up? And that's led to some really interesting issues or concepts that we've come across. So just to quickly, the core of the problem that we're dealing with is that people want to build in exactly the most fragile and dangerous places. So on the Great Lakes shorelines, there's a lot of pressure to build in nearshore settings. And that's both from property owners who want to live there, but it's also community folks who want to promote that because that's tax revenue. And it's quality of life for important residents. At the same time, those are dangerous places, and the building that happens can really undermine the natural functioning of those systems. So one of the core issues that we really are constantly dealing with is, are we taking steps to protect the beach house or to protect the beach? And sometimes that's the same thing, but often they're not. If you protect one, you're doing it at the expense of the other. So how do you deal with that? So that's the core issue. There are three issues that we've kind of bumped up against that fit my misaligned mission hitches. And some of them we've talked about already to some extent. So the first is what I would call issues of stormwater management. What we found through our work with the city and the township is there are a lot of programs going on that are really related to each other, but because of the way they've been structured institutionally, the key players don't talk to each other much. So there's stormwater management, there's floodplain management, there's wetlands, there's coastal dunes, they're all connected, but we've parceled off and siloed how we approach stormwater issues, and we've parceled off and siloed how we deal with floodplain management, and we've parceled off wetlands. So they're really misaligned missions between the agencies that are dealing with these at the state, federal, local level, and then the departments. So sometimes the city officials are literally working on things connected with folks across the hall, and they never see the connection because they just don't talk to each other. So one of the solutions to that issue is get them to start talking to each other. Interestingly, in Ottawa County, they've now adopted their MS4 county level stormwater management programs, and that's going to, I think, open the door to bring in floodplain management and wetlands protection in a way that's more rigorous than what they've dealt with in the past. So that's not really a crisis, but it's kind of a lost opportunity. They're not doing as much as they could do if they were integrating their work better. This is an interesting one. So this is shoreline development. Here, the misaligned missions are between the state and the locals. The state regulates shoreline development, particularly through the high-risk erosion program. That's leading to real confusion at the local level of what can we do? Can we do anything? The state's already doing it. Can we add anything on top of that? And this was the case where we showed this on a wall at the city. Turns out there's a fellow sitting in the audience who's talking to my research assistant saying, who is this guy? He doesn't know what he's talking about. What's going on here? I write permits off for the time for the city, and he's all wrong. Well, I found out later he's a property owner who's written permits to DEQ, and we were right. I went back and I checked. The city has the authority to adopt its own regulations on top of the high-risk erosion program. And where we are showing the setback lines are pretty much right in line as best we can tell with what the state is finding. But there's a disconnect here because of the way the programs are structured and how people are dealing with it. And that can lead to houses maybe getting built too close to the shoreline. I'm going really fast because I'm watching the clock. The last one, this is the really most interesting one to me. This is the dunes, the critical dunes in the township. People want to build in these critical dunes because they're beautiful places. In fact, they have a neighborhood that was built in the 20s called the Wilderness, and the houses are just cheek by jowl. Well, the state adopted a state law that says you can't do anything more than what we're doing to regulate this. So the city is prohibited from regulating for the dunes, but the state also is really reluctant to let them build bigger roads and cut away vegetation because of fire hazards and safety hazards. They can't get their fire trucks all the way up into these dunes because the roads are so hazardous. So now there's this huge fire risk hazard. So they're really struggling how do we deal with protecting the resource base and what the state's telling us against a real concern that if one of those houses go up, probably 5 or 6 are going to go up before they can get their trucks up in there. And so the solution we've hit with them is start thinking about shifting risk. Really, for the shoreline and these property owners, you can live there. We're not going to tell you no, but we want you to start taking on the risk yourselves of what that means in terms of providing public service and safety. So these were ideas we just presented to these communities. The question is, what will they do with them next? Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.